Good evening. Late in getting round to the Herald today, as you can see, fascinating article by Kirsty Hughes, who is a real expert, as you regular Herald readers will know, an academic, and I say academic in a very positive sense in her case. And her headline really raises fascinating speculations and observations. Why a UK-EU thaw could be a boost for the Indie cause. That's one to conjure with. I certainly hadn't thought along these lines at all. That's why she's a professor and I'm not. Basically, our theme is that UK, under stress, it has to be said, but we're leading up to this, has been gradually edging towards an improved relationship with EU. They're not quite startling the Great Wall, shouting at the French, etc. And a number of notable things have been done, which are indicators, straws in the wind, you might say, of an approach driven, I suspect, by desperation now, by the Tories realising the appalling damage Brexit is doing to the British economy, trying to ease off in certain areas. So Kirsty makes the point in this. It raises the question of whether better EU-UK relations, especially under a likely Labour government, in 2 years' time, might ease some of the challenges of an independent Scotland being an EU member state, while the rest of the UK stays outside. And the Herald has picked out this quote: "If the UK has better relations with the EU, cooperating on big energy and security challenges, this will tend to make things easier for an independent Scotland." Sir Keir's EU strategy is a balancing act of continuing with Brexit while working to build positive relations with Brussels. However, there's a potential downside to this, but before we leave the negatives, if the UK has better bilateral relations with the EU, cooperating on big energy and security challenges, this will tend to make things easier. However, there may be, as Kirsty says, a rather more political risk for the pro-independence side, and we must pay close attention to this. A better EU-UK relationship could make EU member states less sympathetic to Scotland's independence ambitions. Back in 2014, the EU was notionally neutral, but clearly rather supportive to fellow member states, supportive to the fellow member state of the UK. In other words, they weren't actually supporting Scotland. They made a few positive noises off stage, but nothing on stage. Kirsty goes on to say the UK will remain a third country outsider if they stay out of the EU. If Scotland chooses independence in the EU, it's hard to see the EU adopting its 2014 language of suggesting Scotland's EU accession path would be long and difficult. And she concludes by saying, both politically and economically, an independent Scotland would benefit from that smoother relationship, first as a candidate for EU membership and ultimately as an EU member state, a consummation devoutly to be wished for. Thank you, Kirsty Hughes.